Jim, what herbs and supplements would you recommend for a warm dog with mast cell cancer? So, Jim, this is where I look at. So, for a warm dog, when I go to Chinese herbal medicine or look at a pet from a Chinese medicine perspective, everything is interconnected, right? And a lot of times when we have mast cell disease, we have what we call like a blood deficiency. A lot of these dogs have been on a kibble diet. Kibble diet's very drying. It's pro-inflammatory. It doesn't support spleen, which is the digestion in the digestive organ in Chinese medicine. Now, I don't know if your dog's been on kibble for a majority of its life and maybe you've transitioned or maybe you haven't transitioned yet. I'm not sure. I don't know the backstory. But for number one, anytime we're treating cancer, a pet has cancer, and this goes for lipomas, benign lumps and bumps. That is a benign cancer. It doesn't necessarily mean there's going to be a major issue like there can potentially be with mast cell tumors. So mast cell tumors release a lot of histamine. They can get really red, angry, irritated, inflamed. They can be a big problem where they pop, like they get really big. They can break open. They can be really irritating and distressful for pets. And so when we're looking at cancer, we need to make sure we are feeding low carbohydrate diets. We talked about this last night where Keto Pet Sanctuary, getting them ideally towards a more ketogenic diet, which is going to be a high fat and medium high protein, very low minimal carbohydrates. Any carbs that are in that diet are going to be like your leafy greens, your blueberries, your high antioxidant nutrients to help support the body that have anti-cancer properties. We talked a lot about turmeric, and turmeric can be a warming root. There's different types of turmeric though, and it's fascinating. So not every warm dog does poorly with your turmeric. So what I'd say is try it and see how they do. You'll know a lot of times because they feel more hot, they pant more, or they're like seeking the cool like floor, the tile more. But using turmeric, which is a great anti-cancer supplement, also supports gut health, transitioning them to that really low carbohydrate diet. The Chinese herbs I use will depend on that pet. There is a really common one that is called Blood's Palace. And what it does is it's essentially a combination of different herbs that are blood tonics. So blood tonics are things like we can use food for blood tonics, so organ meats. There's a lot of different ways that we can incorporate blood tonics. Essentially, we're putting more blood back in or water back into the river to get things circulating again so they don't back up and cause a lump or a bump or a mass. That's essentially kind of the metaphor way of describing these things. So I would say, work with someone to help like figure out where's your pet's underlying imbalance, using cooling foods. So if your pet is warm, that's where we use cooling proteins. We're using things like turkey, duck, rabbit. Beef is neutral. We want to avoid things like venison. We want to avoid lamb. Chicken can be warming. Now, your cooling vegetables are going to be vegetables above the ground. So these are all using those food therapy principles. So avoiding those root vegetables, which will be higher in carbohydrates too, and are going to be more warming to the body. So you want to avoid those also. So those are a couple tips to kind of get you started and continue to search. And we have a lot of resources on thenationalpetdoctor.com for cancer. So make sure you check that out too, and on our YouTube.